Hey folks, welcome to Real Movies Fake History, a show about movies, history, and the truth in between. I'm Gaz.
And I'm Mel.
In this episode, we are critiquing the 2022 film She Said, based on the real-life investigative reporting by Jodi, Kantor, and Twohey into the sexual abuse settlements made by movie producer Harvey Weinstein. Now, a content warning for you. Due to the topic, of course, we will be discussing sexual abuse and other
sexual assault, bullying, harassment, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so a content warning for you. We'll also be talking about how inspiring these characters are, how the history really played out. We're going to have a real proper Rotten Tomatoes game coming up as well. And Mel, if we have time, I might even introduce a brand new segment to the show. So stay tuned for that.
Woohoo!
So let's get started. I hate to bring this up, but I think considering even the year we're in today, 2024, and when we turn the news on and you see what's going on in the world of politics, it feels like She Said is really, really relevant to the world we're living in even today.
Very much so.
I mean, everything that's happening in this film is about how power works in these systems. It's hard.
Specifically about powerful men.
Yeah.
Like, that's important to call out.
And I'm looking at the American election and you're seeing what's happening. And then you watch She Said and you're like, you realize this story is just still going.
It is. And we need to do better.
Which is
why we're talking about this movie, because it's an important story to tell and it is a great film.
It's so good.
So shall we set the scene?
I mean, it really starts, I think, truly in 2016 in New York City. We've got two reporters that work for the New York Times. Investigative reporters Jodi, Kantor, and Twohey, whose book this movie is based on. Now tell me, you've read the book.
I have. It's excellent.
Yeah, so it's worth a read, yeah?
Definitely.
I think it's key to call out that section at the beginning of the movie that is about really Trump.
Except this story about Trump is an example of a story that doesn't land. And by that I mean Trump doesn't care. He's got no shame. It doesn't influence the election in any meaningful way. But I think the reason why the movie starts off with this story is to contrast it with why the article that both Jodi and Megan write in 2017 does land.
And I can see it, Mel. You know, the original article about Trump is called "Two Women Say Donald Trump Touched Them Inappropriately." That's the thing. And now that headline comes out during that presidential campaign, and it makes no difference whatsoever to how power is held by that individual. And, you know, how do you feel? I feel like one of the hardest things to watch in this movie is seeing two reporters do all this work again to get women to bravely go on the record and tell the truth of what's happened to them against all odds and power against them. But they have to think to themselves, this may not make a difference again.
And Megan certainly raises that in the movie. But where this story is different is they're not just relying on, and this is why the movie is called She Said, from the female perspective. It's using other evidence. So, for example, a key bit of evidence is that they had confirmation that there had been between 8 and 12 settlements paid out to different women because of Harvey Weinstein's wrongdoing. Now, in those settlements, and because you've got NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, it didn't acknowledge guilt. But when you've got that kind of number paid out to individual women, it starts to show a pattern of behavior which isn't merely relied on testimony.
Right.
So that's that. It also feeds into the idea of a company having to pay out of its own cash to bail out Harvey. It is
like millions of dollars.
Not millions. So this is where this is different from the Fox one.
Right. Okay.
So for example, Rose McGowan was only paid out about $100,000.
Wow.
With the Fox scandal, they were paid off some of the millions.
Oh yeah.
Like, we're talking about different levels of cash.
I think Bill O'Reilly, using the power of his Fox News show, he had the biggest show, 8 o'clock prime time, the O'Reilly factor. And like that guy, I think he paid 13 million, something like this, over all of the sexual, sex.
But was it
settlements.
actually him or was it the company?
Oh, it was the company.
And that's important.
Right. It was Fox that did
Right?
that. Right.
Because it's someone else's money.
And I guess they did that because Fox was ran by someone that was also a sexual abuser at the time.
So he didn't care.
So Roger Ailes,
But it's also not Roger's company. And this is the point. It's a misuse of company funds.
The Trump section too is very well done because it establishes the consequences of trying to tell the truth, actually. And, one of them I'm thinking of is Rachel Crooks was the person that she used as a source. Who went on the record and said, Trump assaulted her. And what Rachel gets for her efforts is harassment.
Death threats, rape threats.
She gets that package in the mail. It's like full of shit, let's face it. It's really horrific. And then on top of this, there's this media representational aspect to it that's disturbing where you have Megan at this time as a New York Times reporter is pregnant. She's going for a doctor checkup. And just before she goes in, she gets a phone call and it's from Bill O'Reilly, Fox News' staff. And they're going, are you a feminist? Huh? Are you a feminist? And she immediately knows, obviously, it's Fox News. She doesn't want to comment and she hangs up. Now, you're kind of going like, oh, that's a weird. I think initially, as me and you as audience members, you don't get what's the consequence to that? She just hung up, that's fine. But then late that night, her and her husband are in bed and they're watching Fox News and Bill O'Reilly's talking about her as a journalist and her integrity. And he's kind of almost going, we asked her if she's a feminist and she didn't even answer that. She couldn't even answer that question. And you're almost going like, Jesus, like not even answering is them spinning your integrity in a negative way.
Yeah, but remember, these guys are not after the truth.
Oh.
So that defeats they don't care.
Which is always funny because Bill O'Reilly's show was, his tagline was the no spin zone. We don't spin anything.
But anyone that says no spin is always full of spin.
Right.
That's generally how that works.
That's why it's crazy,
So I want to bring in Ashley Judd.
Okay.
Who plays herself in this movie and is featured in the story on the record about Harvey's treatment. And she is an actress which really highlights the double standards, not just in Hollywood, but also about politics and advertising. So she does that nasty woman speech, which was actually taken from Trump, but she's the one who loses her endorsement over it.
That's quite upsetting, actually, to hear.
But factually true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you've got this double standard about what is acceptable for women to do and what is acceptable for men to do. And 100%. He absolutely tanked her career. Like, she was going to be huge.
She already was huge in many ways. And that's what's so disturbing about it is that she kind of already was a real, like she did, Ashley Judd did Double Jeopardy, which was the Tommy Lee Jones, her movie. She was the star of that movie. That movie was a huge, huge box office success.
Yes.
Huge. And so, but then you can see how her career faded rapidly.
Yeah, and not because of her talent.
No, she's amazing.
She's amazing. She's brilliant in Berlin Station.
Oh, yeah.
Like, phenomenal in Berlin Station.
I remember in Heat. In Heat, she plays Val Kilmer's partner. She's amazing in it. I mean, this is a really talented person. It's really fascinating to see her now playing herself and giving her real testimony in a movie that it's a real story, but it's fictionalized because there's actors in it. So it'd be fascinating to know.
But this movie blurs that line a fair bit.
It does. This is why this movie is a good thing for us to talk about, because the movie's obviously, it's an acted, it's a performative
It's not a documentary.
Movie. It's not a documentary. It's a fictionalized account because actors are playing real people and the timeline's compressed and all of this. But then the movie's going, here it almost turns into a documentary.
In bits,
because Ashley Judd is herself. And you're like, this is kind of like a documentary now. Because that's not her performing.
No.
I think she's going, no, this is what happened to me.
And so her incident occurred in 1997. And Weinstein is not really exposed until 2017. That's
Right.
20 years.
Yeah.
Now, there had been that Variety article
Yes.
where she talks about a Hollywood producer, but she doesn't name him.
Yes. That's right. So Peter Biskin wrote a book about Miramax. In 2004, it was published, and I read that, and a good deal of that is about Miramax and Harvey Weinstein. And he paints this very monstrous picture of Weinstein's behavior, but he never actually calls out in any part of the book because he doesn't have anybody on the record. He never calls out assault. He calls out bad behavior, poor
Harvey
treatment.
punched his brother in a meeting.
Yeah, he calls
Harvey
out that.
used to throw things.
That's right. Like he
Like he's a horrible person in many aspects of his life.
yes.
Treatment towards women, treatment towards his brother, misuse of corporate funds,
Right.
bullying, intimidation. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy. And like, this was in 2004. And I read this book and I was like, my God, this guy is a monster. I mean, literally, like, at everything but the level of sexual assault, which he didn't cover, everything else,
Yep.
he is monstrous.
But he's also a master predator. So part of the reason he got away with it for so long is he made sure to have powerful friends. And not just by like socializing them. So he would raise a ton of money for Democratic election campaigns.
Oh, I mean,
No, but that matters, right? Because if
Yeah.
you've raised money, then when you're in trouble, you can make a phone call and say, I need help.
oh, and like he donated to women's groups, right?
Exactly.
You know, and so
did
this is what you do.
documentaries about those things.
Totally.
And, he donated money to Anna Wintour's, the Met Gala, whatever that thing is for the costumes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So he had powerful friends. And that's what makes him a master predator.
Yeah,
He knew what he was
manipulator.
doing, he was wrong. And they created a bunch of armor around himself to get away with it for decades.
Yeah. I feel that your point of view is right. I don't want to focus on the predator because this is a story about the women. I will tell you one thing that I know about Weinstein. It gives you an idea of like how his brain works, which is kind of terrifying. That like he would basically, his business model was to go to film festivals and buy movies.
Yes.
So he would buy independent movies that were independently produced, and then he would market them like they're Hollywood blockbusters and then make money off them. So 10 million to buy them, make 50 million profit. And it was a very, very clever model because independent film in the late 80s, early 90s was really exploding. And so it was not unheard of for Weinstein to hate a filmmaker so much, he would spend millions on buying a movie that they had made that is good. And he would take it and he would put it on the shelf.
He'd shelve it, yep.
And he would never let anyone see it again and not even release it. And that kind of vindictiveness is part of who he was. He was incredibly vindictive.
So I guess the reason I'm bringing up this predatory behavior is partly because he used other women to help or assist with that predatory behavior.
Yes.
So, for example, he had numerous assistants who would manage the Harvey's Friends Excel spreadsheet,
Right.
which was women in various towns and cities across the planet that he could call to sexually harass, assault, etc.
Good Lord.
Like this, it wasn't just Harvey didn't do it on his own.
Right. He had enablers, right? That's what
Exactly.
we're saying, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
but also they weren't all just men either.
Yes.
Like this is the thing the complexity and the ugliness of this. So also, for example, he hired Lisa Bloom as one of his lawyers.
Yeah.
Her mom was a feminist icon. Now, she did engage in some dodgy stuff for Harvey.
Okay.
Including they were involved in hiring private investigators to stalk Harvey Weinstein's victims. They made it sound like Rose McGowan was crazy. Like, Lisa Bloom did not shine herself in glory or meeting lawyer ethical standards at all.
There's a few points in the movie, Mel, where they bring up Lisa Bloom and they're
Because
jaw-dropping.
Harvey said he'd make her book into a movie.
Well, that's right.
And that's what I mean by those how do you get a favor?
Yeah.
Right? It's not just Harvey calling a friend. It's transactional. I'm going to make you a global name. I'm going to produce your book, but you're going to defend me.
Yeah.
And she did. She does eventually resign, but post the article.
But Lisa Bloom to me is one of these figures that is almost so absurd because she's almost like, I will defend one of the most hideous predators of all time. I'm going to defend him. She, even in the movie, one of the messages and emails that is read out is literally her going to Harvey, listen, you know, you should be the hero of this story.
Exactly. It's sickening.
And you're like, the hero of the story. Like, that's her point of view, right? And so she's doing that. And you're thinking, what happens? And then, in real life, when things don't go so well, and spoiler alert,
they don't
go well, Lisa Bloom is like, gee, guys, sorry
I'm
about
out.
that. I have to apologize. That was a bit, I was a bit misinformed, I suppose.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you joking?
Which is a lie. She, of course, knew about the 8 to 12 settlement. She would have known about all sorts of things. Like, that's just a lie.
100%. I mean, it's absurd. And I suppose, there are characters around Weinstein, enablers like Lisa Bloom, that when you really hear what they wrote, and then you see how history played out around 2017, you just go, guys, it's almost comically mad how the cognitive dissonance works with what you're saying in public and what's actually really going on.
Because he could give people things they really wanted.
Yeah.
Whether it was their vanity or money or an Oscar. So people were willing to do dodgy stuff to get their darkest desires.
Yeah. So like Lisa Bloom's book is, Miramax are going to kind of do a 6-part series about one of her books. And so because of that, she's like, Harvey, I am going to make you the hero of the story.
Yeah, I'm Team Harvey.
And you know why? Because I know how women or victims like this, I know how they think.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm going to use that against them for your benefit.
And post the Harvey Weinstein muck-up, she has since gone on to defend women against Jeffrey Epstein. Like, she has done amazing work before and after. This is just a bizarre situation, but I think this feeds into why Harvey got away with what he did for decades. And some of this goes back to the 1970s. And if you don't look at the why, it doesn't stop in the future for the next predator. And there will be more predators.
Harvey Weinstein is one person that was caught.
Yes. How many weren't?
And that's it. And to be quite blunt, think about it, right? Think how much work it took to catch him. Now, this is a guy who everybody knew this, right?
Yeah. There'd been police investigations. There had been other books. There had been other articles. Agents knew. Publishers knew. Actors knew. People like Brad Pitt knew.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the biggest Ricky Gervais fan, but he had a great joke. He went on stage at the Golden Globes.
I remember.
And he said something like, he made a Harvey Weinstein joke. And then the crowd of Hollywood elites were all sitting there and they were kind of going, oh, I don't know. And they booed him a little bit and have groaned a bit. And he just went, hey, he's your friend.
Yeah.
He's your friend. Hey, I'm just making a joke about it. You're the guys that enabled him. And I thought that was brilliant because everybody was like getting on their soapbox and going, hey, don't make jokes about him. We don't like him. And it's like, guys, your industry made him possible. Everybody picked up the phone when he called. Don't give me your crap.
Even during the New York Times investigation, there's a scene in the movie where Gwyneth calls Jodi in a panic and says, Harvey has rocked up at my house.
Yeah.
Now, that is true. However, Harvey had called a few days earlier because Gwyneth was having a party to raise some money for some project.
Right.
He asked if he could attend. He was told he could. What actually happened was he rocked up early.
Oh, I see.
So even when Gwyneth is feeding information and supplying a ton of contacts to these journalists about how bad a guy he is, she was still going to allow him to turn up and enter her house.
That's madness.
Agreed, right? She thought it would be worse if she didn't. But I'm like, this is what I mean by that enabling behavior. She knows he's a criminal and a rapist and a serial sexual harasser.
Yeah.
And she was still willing to let him in her house.
My God. I mean,
when she's one of the most powerful and successful actresses on the planet.
Yeah.
So that tells you something.
But here's the thing, Mel. Why wouldn't Harvey Weinstein think he would get away with it? Because when the world treats you like that.
But he did for 30 odd years.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, he's hideous. But then when he sees the world reflecting back at him that behavior is, well, it's not great, but we'll accept it. He's like, well, I guess I can keep going. He's still getting invited to parties. And he's like, well, she invited me to a party. Can't be that bad.
Yeah. So in this case, I don't think she had it invited. He asked if she could attend.
Okay. Right. Well, there you go.
But again, he's not being refused.
And look, maybe there's a deeper reason for it. I don't know. But like, it sounds odd. Kind of gives him a way to say to himself, well, it seems like I'm still part of the in crowd. I'm still going to the party. I will say, I'll mention this because the film does talk to this, and I think it's really great, and it displays to me why the film has some very important conversations, because the film's all dialogue, but some of these conversations are really great thinking pieces. There is a part where Jodi and Megan are having a chat at the New York Times office, and it's early when Megan is returning from maternity leave, and she's trying to get her teeth into a story. Jodi's been working on the Weinstein case for a while, but not getting anywhere yet. One of the criticisms Megan says is like, look, these are famous actresses, right? They got money, they're famous, everyone knows them. Why should we be committing our time to covering people that are really, really famous and have lots of money? There are probably other victims out there that don't have those resources, that are not famous, that work minimum wage, right? So there's probably
and the book talks about that they were getting feed-in from places like McDonald's,
right?
Where you've got a young woman who is really on minimum wage and is being continually harassed at work.
Yeah. Megan quite rightly is saying, should we really cover this, right? Like, why cover these women because they're already, famous and have resources? And Jodi says something really great that really makes you go, holy, yeah, she's right. She says, listen, if this can happen to these women who are powerful in certain ways, who have a public profile, and who have, at least on the surface of things, financial resources, and if this still happens to them, what chance have the rest of us got? It doesn't actually matter where, even how much power you can actually grasp or how successful you get. You're still susceptible to this type of power from men.
I would say women in Hollywood, and same for the music industry, while they have money, in many ways they're incredibly vulnerable because so much of their power is based on their looks.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
And so many of them get shelved at about 32. They're not actually in a position of power at all. And I think that is the point. They get less money, generally speaking, still to this day, than their male colleagues. It wasn't that long ago, The Crown, season 1, the guy who played Prince Philip made way
more money
than the woman who played the Queen,
really?
Even though all the advertising was based on her.
Well, it's called The Crown.
Yeah, I know.
It's not called
but
Philip,
Matt
is it?
Smith got paid more.
God, really?
Right, like this is a systemic problem.
Yeah, that is. Ugh, right.
Like, Hollywood is not based on merit.
No.
And it's one of the industries that is probably the worst for not based on merit.
And let's face it, it's ugly, right? Ugly.
Way worse.
Ugly.
So, most industries, when you get down to it, are not based on as merit as much as they should be.
Oh, listen,
but Hollywood's probably the worst.
To confess, as someone who was young once, back in 2004, right? I was at film school. I'm thinking I want to work in movies. I read Peter Biskin's book about Miramax, and I literally finished it and thought, I don't think this is a good industry to work in.
No, it's horrible.
It was that awakening where, don't get me wrong, I mean, there's good people around in everywhere, but there's a systemic thing here where it's horrible. Like, it's genuinely horrible. And I was kind of looking like, they were talking about all the movies that I admired, right? A decade of movies that you think, because, if you're an independent filmmaker, Mel, your dream is for Miramax to buy that movie.
Yes.
That was what the dream was in the 90s. If you were a Tarantino and you take Reservoir Dogs the
Yeah,
festival.
he's going to promote it.
And then you're like, holy crap, they bought it, and then and then they're off, right? And then you're off. The horse has left the stable, and that's the dream. And then when you read how that industry worked, and that this guy ran it, you go, Hollywood sucks. You know, there's such a horrific reality check that happens with that. And this film, and you know, let's face it, it's kind of still shocking to me that in 2022, this movie's released, we haven't even got to the bottom of it. We're still uncovering garbage that nobody's talking about. And I think for an industry where I read about this guy and how horrible he was 20 years ago, I'm still learning about it. I'm still going, how deep does the rabbit hole go? You know?
But not only that, Miramax was sold to Disney in 1993. Now, that is a company that is meant to be all about family values, producing content for children, the happiest place on earth, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And here they have with a subsidiary company that has got a serial sex pest and a guy who's engaging in a sexual assault, rape, and harassment.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's messed up because Disney is powerful enough to deal with it.
Oh.
They chose not to.
Oh, 100%. I remember when they paid them off to leave. I remember that was a massive story. They got a fortune, the Weinsteins.
Oh, the golden handshake.
100%. They got, I think, in the hundreds of millions.
And you're like, why?
It was, you know, to get them out of the company. They knew they were not good for the brand.
They didn't need to do that.
No, you know, but like
again, that feeds in.
Power.
Privileged men get golden handshakes.
I don't.
These women get like 120,000 pounds and dollars, depending on which country a crime occurred.
I mean,
that's the problem.
Look, I don't remember the figure exactly because it's been, I don't know.
But it's not 120,000, and that's the point. It doesn't matter what the figure is.
It was something like, I think
You're
it was
adding more zeros.
It was hundreds of millions.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I remember reading about that and thinking, good God, I've never heard of a payout like that.
Yeah, what is Disney thinking?
Yeah, it was outrageous to get rid of, you know, that. I mean, come on. Yeah.
So I want to talk about Zelda Perkins and Rowena Chu.
Yes, okay.
Venice Film Festival.
Yeah.
You've got these two young women who, they're in Venice. Venice is amazing.
It's very exciting.
You've got a friend who's about the same age. You see them, it looks like it's the early morning sharing a beer together. Life is good.
And there is, you know, the movie creates a really beautiful sense of those two.
They're buddies.
They look so happy together. You know, they really do channel that youthful happiness of all of life's possibilities are in front of me.
Now, that's a facade.
Right.
Right? Because even before the horrible incident to Rowena Chu occurred, they were regularly being sexually harassed.
Really?
Yes. And asked to do inappropriate things. So basically, when Harvey's in town or they're away with Harvey, you've got to go into his bedroom and wake Harvey up. You've got to, you know, there's always these lewd things about give me a massage or let me touch you or whatever else. Like, these are young assistants.
Yeah.
You know, they knew things like always wear a puffer jacket. Rowena Chu, when she went into that room, was wearing 2 pairs of tights as an added protection against Harvey. That does not suggest to me that they feel safe in their workplace.
What does get to me is those kind of details that people talk about, wearing extra tights, or I know Zelda Perkins, played by, amazingly, by the way, by Samantha Morton.
She's fabulous in this movie.
Probably I think maybe the best role in the movie.
She's my favorite in this movie.
Yeah, I feel the same. Funny. It's funny we feel the same about that. Like, she is outrageously
She's a powerhouse in it.
Oh, she's so good.
And she's actually not in that much of it.
No, it's literally, she steals the movie with what, 7 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe less, you know. It's an amazing scene. She's incredible at it. I mean, a master class in acting subtle, direct, and also communicating very restrained pain. Because she is in pain, but it's very restrained. She's very composed. And watching her play that is just, it's music. You know, it's really, really good. She talks about how she was told, you know, if you're around Harvey, it's good to wear a puffer jacket.
Yeah, and never sit on the couch.
And don't sit next to him on a couch on the sofa or anything like that.
No, never sit on the couch, so he can't sit on a couch.
Next to you.
So
yeah.
sit in a single seat, a chair,
that
a lounge, whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like...
That's not a safe workplace.
No, I mean, you could imagine being around people and then being told this and going like, how often does this happen that this is like an office rule?
It must be daily.
Yeah, every day.
Right. That's the
Every
bit
day.
you need to
I mean,
remember.
And I suppose those details, they sell to me the horrid reality of like, wow, that's how it would work. It's like, it's so common that every day is, if I wear this clothing, I may have a less chance of being sexually assaulted.
So the reason I'm bringing up these two is they quit the day after the incident. They got themselves lawyers. They managed to get a settlement of about £125,000 each, but they had to sign an NDA.
Right.
Now, under these NDAs, and I don't understand how these are legal. I'd love to see some court cases about this.
Yes.
They don't even get copies of their settlements. They need permission to go to see an accountant. You need permission to see a therapist. How is that valid in law?
But how do you also
That's messed up.
how do anyone even police this stuff? Like, it must be like
No,
impossible.
but at 22, how do you know that? Like, that's what's messed up is you're getting these young girls to sign something they think they're bound to. They don't know whether they're bound to them or not in practice.
Yeah.
So Zelda got away and went to Guatemala for 5 years. That's how she got away. And she ended up still working in theatre, so she did come back. But Rowena Chu, this is more messed up. She had the incident, tried to get another job, couldn't. As part of the settlement, she was told she'd be able to get a good reference from Miramax. And Miramax was like, Harvey really likes you. He'd like you to come back, blah, blah, blah. She ended up agreeing to go back and ended up in the Hong Kong office.
Yes.
She did attempt to commit suicide at least once.
That's
Why
heartbreaking.
would Harvey want her back? Like, how messed up is that?
Well, this is the pathology of a
Predator?
predator, is that it's control and power at all costs. I mean, that's victory to a predator, to have that action, to have her in the circle, no matter where it is.
Messed up.
I mean, I think that's pleasurable to someone like him, which
I
is
think
just,
it is.
yeah. I mean, even the idea that you have the power to pull those strings is just, I think that's what he gets off on, which is horrible, but that's the reality of how someone with that pathology thinks.
So think about how many people knew about this. As part of that settlement, they brought in a lawyer from America to fly overnight to be part of this.
Yeah.
Harvey didn't pay for these settlements in the 90s.
It was all company money,
This
right?
is company money.
Which, yes.
Like-
I mean, yeah, the accountants now sign off on this. Yeah.
Accountants, the board probably was aware of it. We're talking lots of people.
Yeah. I mean, this is a lot of money, as you said. But the figures you mention are quite surprising, Mel. The fact that you mentioned the figures that some of these women got to settle under these draconian terms, the figures are quite low.
They are.
And we were talking $100,000, I think you mentioned for...
This one was £125,000.
Right. I mean, this is not a lot of money. Here,
No.
do you want me to give you another figure?
Yeah.
Right. So Harvey Weinstein, when Megan Twohey and Jodi Kantor and Ronan Farrow were all writing and investigating Harvey simultaneously for the New Yorker and the New York Times, Harvey Weinstein hired a Black Cube, which is an Israeli security firm that rich people use to shut people up, essentially. And so they were stalking them and all that sort of stuff. Do you know how much money now Harvey Weinstein would have paid for Black Cube?
5-10 mil?
So you're probably not far off it. Yeah, I mean, he asked him to do one thing, and I know in the book he was quoted as it was $150,000 to do a unit of intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is hiring people to stay up all night. This is hiring security experts to hack into phones.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a lot of money.
All criminal behaviour.
This is all extremely criminal and off the books. And, Ronan Farrow testified he was stalked constantly as he's interviewing the women, and the women were stalked themselves. I mean, we're talking about, he would spend no money on the victims of this and then a ton of money on the security to try and create an apparatus of intimidation.
But wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't.
No,
actually.
not you personally, but you
I
know what
you-
I mean. If you're this bad guy,
Right, yes.
of course you're going to try and protect your life and your reputation.
Right, yeah. And apparently this company, it's all ex-Mossad agents.
Of course it is.
And so they are all...
Because you're going to hire professionals.
all the rich people in the world, apparently, these are the guys you hire, so it's
The Israelis are the best at this stuff.
Well, that's what they say. And so, yeah, I mean, terrifying stuff. I mean, the money, as you said, if we just think of tax dollars, I mean, the amount of money that's being spent just to cover up the crimes of one individual is kind of jaw-dropping what do you say we maybe treat people well and maybe make movies? I don't know. What do you think, guys? I think that's what the company's supposed to do. I mean, hideous, right? Hideous stuff. But wow, yeah. I mean, Samantha Morton, go back to her. Wow, she is absolutely striking in the movie.
Is she the lead in Heartless?
I haven't seen Heartless, I confess. She was in the Minority Report. She's never failed to continuously surprise me how talented she is. She is just an amazing actress. Everything she does is tasteful, appropriate, controlled. It's incredible. She's such a masterclass of acting in this.
She is the lead in Heartless.
Okay, yeah.
Which is about 2 different brothels in, I think, about 18th century England. Phenomenal piece of work.
I must watch it.
Brilliant.
Right.
Really, really good. She's also the lead. She plays Catherine de Medici in The Serpent Queen.
Oh, right. Okay. Which I haven't seen.
Also brilliant.
Right.
And she, Catherine Medici, famous, is very cold in that too.
Yeah, right. I mean...
But she's just a badass actor.
Oh, it's just so good. She just steals the movie. And I'm thinking more and more about it. I do want to mention something. One thing is there is the Gutierrez tape. There's this model that they talk about in the movie Gutierrez, and she was, of course, abused by Harvey.
You only hear it in the movie. You don't see it.
Yeah, so Gutierrez was a model that Harvey Weinstein groped. And when she complained about it, the New York Police Department told her to wear a wire so that they could get
Which is a pathetic response by the New York Police Department.
Well, I guess at the bare minimum, at
You're
least...
sending a victim back in.
Well,
come on.
Yeah,
no, not acceptable.
That is true. I doubt there was a SWAT
this
team.
This is not some sort of dodgy drug thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was like, there wasn't, like a movie.
She's at risk of being sexually assaulted.
Right.
Like, no,
I know.
not okay.
And I don't think there was like 10 cops waiting to save her, right?
There's none.
No. So like they
disgraceful behavior.
So they basically said, look, we've no evidence. These types of things are very difficult to charge, which is historically, unfortunately, true.
Yeah, so let's make you potentially a victim again.
Right, yeah. So you're going to be bait and you go in and you wear the wire. And so I believe in real life, Ronan Farrow is the journalist for The New Yorker who is writing his kind of stuff simultaneously to the New York Times. He got a copy of that tape. That's the tape they play. It's the real tape. And it's in the movie. It's got that hotel room shot and you hear the audio. It's very disturbing. I found it fascinating and confronting because it is like a front row seat to hear how a master manipulator enforces his needs upon someone, overwhelms her with language, with demands. Don't embarrass me. This is, who I am.
He almost plays the victim at times. He's like, please don't embarrass me. I won't do anything. Just give me 1 minute. Like he acts like innocent.
It's almost like you're the crazy one.
Exactly.
Like, why are you behaving like this? Stop embarrassing me. They know me in this hotel. I'm a powerful person. Listen, people know me here. You're embarrassing me. Just come in for 5 minutes.
It makes no sense. Why does she need to come in at all?
Right. It's really, it really is, that's how he does it.
Yeah.
And they're not shying away from it. They're like, this is it. You must come in and, and
then the New York Police Department couldn't do anything with it anyhow.
Which is insane to me.
So why even send her in?
So she literally records him admitting that he groped her, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't enough.
So
what do you need to do? Send her in again, get raped, and then you'll do something?
I mean, it's hideous.
It's messed up.
It's so messed up. And I remember that audio, and this is what this movie does to people, right? It makes you so furious because you're listening to the audio and you're like, I'm literally here, the evidence. There it is. It's right there. They said they dropped the case because they didn't have enough evidence on it. And when the New York Times reporters, Jodi and Megan, chase up on it, they're like, look, we didn't have enough on him. And then she said, I think Megan says to the ex-district attorney lady, she says, do you know Harvey Weinstein personally?
And she clearly does.
And she says this really hilarious line, quite honestly. She says, oh, look, socially we know each other, but he's never been to my house.
And you're like, because that's the definition of intimacy.
Like, but
then you see her later in the movie, she's on Harvey's team.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And you're like, were you on Harvey's team then when the district attorney's department decided to drop the case?
Yeah. I project myself into the lives of the real journalists who really heard this and looked at it and seen this corruption. And I don't know, Mel, it's amazing how much professional control they had to keep going because at every hurdle you see more and more injustice like this, like comedically absurd injustice that you go, how corrupt is this? I feel like there's a scene where I think it's Jodi she calls like the employment protection.
Megan does it on the weekend.
Right. She calls like I'm not
Equal Opportunity Employment Agency, whatever it is, and they won't give her any data.
Right. She's like, come on, you guys are supposed to protect people from companies that are, serial abusers. And will you give me the data of who is actually the most, horrible companies to work for that are involved in settling this behavior? No. So what are we paying you for? It's just jaw-dropping, isn't it?
Which is horrible, but also at the same time, they would have had no data on Miramax because no one reported it.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. I imagine, yeah.
And I guess most companies wouldn't report it unless it makes the news, or more importantly, unless there's criminal charges.
Yeah.
So that agency would be useless actually having a sense of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean...
Because if you're having these secret agreements with NDAs, how would this agency know about them?
Oh, yeah.
How would they?
And, Zelda says, with her agreement that she signed, I mean, a lot of it was her going, we need HR in Miramax to take some rigorous steps to try and control and make women safe within that workplace. So they tried to put some of those controls in there. I mean, almost laughable what Miramax would have done with that, to be quite blunt. I'm sure basically nothing.
Oh, there was a line that Harvey had to go to therapy. Harvey never went to therapy over this.
If he did,
he just would have lied.
Aye, I mean, he would have went to a friend's house or something. So like it was just complete garbage. But even the basic thing of like, they didn't even give me a copy of the agreement I signed. And they're like, why? You say as part of the agreement was that I wasn't allowed to have one.
Yeah. But also part of those negotiations were occurring at 4:00 in the morning when they're exhausted. And that was also a deliberate part of the strategy.
And scared. And I mean, look, this is some big stuff.
But I think part of what feeds it into it is, and the movie talks about this, the lawyers get about 40% of those proceeds.
Right.
So it reminds me a little bit about Spotlight, where you've also got law firms who have an incentive to continue this system going because it's a revenue stream. And you're like, cash for silence, you're not stopping predators, you're allowing this behavior. You're going against your duty.
I paused the movie and had a comedic rant when Lanny turns up, which is Harvey Weinstein's lawyer. And
one of the lawyers, because he's got many. That's important.
He's got one in every country, I doubt. And so Lanny turns up, and I think it's so funny because it is like he's walking in so many eggshells. It's like he's walking through the world's biggest chicken farm.
But he looks relaxed, and he's dodgy. So he looks quite comfortable. Unlike Lisa Bloom, he's got the pretense of being good.
Oh, and the quotes are diamonds.
Lanny, everyone knows, defends bad guys.
Diamonds.
So it's fine in that sense.
The powerful men of an older generation are changing their understanding of the world.
Of what consent actually means.
I mean, brilliant. I mean, what does that mean? I believe there's a story to be told about the evolution of men. I believe that's the truth. Hilarious. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the guy's sitting there and he's going, let's walk through this terribly carefully because we don't want to incriminate anyone, do we? Come on, guys. Nobody wants to incriminate anyone. We're all friends here. That's so funny. But we haven't mentioned this yet, but the performances of Carey Mulligan and everybody, I mean, they're so good because there is such a... They have to be the wall... Yeah.
And Zoe Kazan is also brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. Like these two, they're so good, and they're always journalists every time they do this.
And they're also different. They are not clones of each other, which I think is really important.
Yeah,
they are very different women, and they bring different strengths to the story, but they do it so brilliantly.
Hey, folks, it's intermission time.
Make yourself a drink, grab some popcorn, and don't forget when making green tea, you only leave the tea leaves in for about 80 seconds.
Oh, come on. Oh, this is awful. Oh, well, it tastes better now. And everything's ruined.
Listen, while Gaz fixes up his tea problem, why not take a moment to subscribe to our show or leave a review on your podcast app or just tell someone about the show. It really helps. Don't forget to also pop by our website, realmoviesfakehistory.com, for some brilliant reviews by Gaz.
Ah, come on. What's the point, Mel? The tea's ruined. We should just cancel this show.
Chin up, Gaz. I've made some new tea just for you.
What? Oh, this is awesome. Honestly, this is the best day ever.
You okay to return to the show?
Yeah, yeah, we could do it. Oh, and by the way, props to the movie. I want to give props to this. I do appreciate that they don't do, because the inverse would have happened, right? Where you've got a guy investigating something and then the wife is like, why, you're always working all the time. You're always out there doing newspaper stuff. I'm with the kids. Come on. You know, I appreciate that the husbands of Jodi and Megan in the movie are represented as being broadly supportive of all of their important work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Jodi's husband is also a New York Times reporter.
Is he? I don't know what he must be doing the crossword. Well,
Were you not paying attention when he's like, they want to ship me off to go to some...
No, I don't think
there's
it was.
some big insurance story and my dad's sick. I've got to get him to Florida before the flood hits.
I do remember that scene, but it was...
Insurance story. What do you mean? There's a scene where they are both standing next to each other in the New York Times office.
I honestly thought he worked for an insurance company. That's honestly
they are both journalists.
It's not like, I mean, in my defense, it's not like they really focus on him very much.
But the point is and I think this is what's different from previous movies in different generations, is these are modern couples. They both have careers. There isn't just one at home.
Yes. It's a dual income, as they say, isn't it? Broadly, they don't have to invent some sort of domestic drama to like make the movie more edgy. You know what I mean?
The movie's already dramatic enough.
That's what I mean. I feel like
dealing with sexual assault. We're already there.
Well, that's right. I mean, I feel like, but I do think if this movie had been made, I don't know, 20, 40 years ago.
They wouldn't have made this movie 40 years ago.
That is actually very
at all.
But if they did, but I feel like they would have invented some domestic thing that...
No, because you already got things that make you sit really uncomfortable when Jodi's on that video call with her little daughter and she's asking her mum what she's doing in London, and Jodi says she's talking to women, and she brings up, were they raped?
Yeah.
And Jodi has that really vulnerable moment where she's like, I've never heard you use that word before.
Yeah.
And that's when her daughter acknowledges, boys use it at school all the time. And
it's quite upsetting.
Jodi's heart breaks. Like, there's already enough tension there.
Yeah.
And it's actually more believable tension.
And that scene is a great way to say the work that we are working on is beyond the boundaries of just what the story is.
Yeah, this is not really a story about actresses and assistants.
Right.
This is about how women are treated.
Broadly, isn't it? Like, and everything. All right, one of my favorite scenes. They're in the bar, right? Rebecca, the editor.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. Rebecca, the editor, played by the Queen, Patricia Clarkson. And then you've got Jodi and Megan are there, and they're talking about the story, and they're doing what reporters do, Mel, which is to go to the local, and so they're doing that. They're talking about the Ronan Farrow story, and then that guy comes up to them and is like, "Hey, my friend over there, he kind of seen you, and blah blah blah." And it's like, "Excuse me, we are having a conversation here.
Go away.
Can you please go away? We're having. Can you can tell we are not interested in this." Yeah. And the gaslighting is immediate. It's almost like he is like, come on, guys, I think you're talking about the wrong thing here. You want to be talking with us. And then Megan...
No, before that, he goes, I would have you over me. Like, basically, he's implying he's about to spank her.
Wow.
Like, he says something first and then she cracks it. She doesn't just crack it.
Right.
He sexualizes it, then she cracks it.
And, Carey Mulligan just... Wow.
And rightly so.
Absolutely, like... And I get so tense in that scene that like I start sweating. This is like, it's like sweat drama to me. I just go like, God, this is intense because it feels real. It feels like a real outburst in a real public place that you would see publicly somewhere. But the worst part is that she does her outburst and says, fuck off, leave us alone. He does that thing where it's like gaslighting, where he's like going, what?
This is not my fault. It's
you guys are a bit much. It's like that. What are you guys getting so amped up about? And you can tell it's an extension of the story they're doing. They're basically going, because that aggression that comes from Megan is not just the reality of that misbehavior of him. It's also her going, I can't be dealing with this in my own life too, right? It's kind of this, it's amazing. It's such a great distillation of that problem.
She's gone to 10, one, because she's stressed and tired and everything else, but also she doesn't know how much he's going to escalate.
Yeah.
So she snaps to get him to, because he doesn't, she has tried politely to get him to back off.
Yeah.
He hasn't. She's like, I don't have time for this. And she goes to 10, so he gets the message.
But that's the only way she can get rid of him, I guess, is that's what it takes.
Well, so often you've either got to put up with it for half an hour.
Yeah.
We've all been there and it's horrible. Or do you know what's worse? They keep coming back. And they just, no, they do. They keep coming back and they keep coming back. And then you've either got to get security or like you haven't made eye contact them. You've shown zero interest, but they feel like they just have a right.
Distills just how tough a job these guys have got. They're fighting a system here.
And that one article is not going to fix it. So should we talk about when the article's about to be published?
I know that this guy, Erwin Reiter, turns up towards the end of the movie.
So he did leak the Lauren O'Connor memo.
Which I believe is one of the key pieces of written paperwork that
that
the journalists had.
So she was a executive when she wrote it at the time of the Weinstein Company.
Yeah.
And basically she sent it to the board about the toxic behavior of Weinstein, the culture, all that kind of stuff, the power imbalance. I have power of 0 as a young executive. He's a 63-year-old man. He's at a power of 10. They signed an agreement with her and it all got dropped. Now, the Weinstein Company, in their infinite wisdom, thought, Harvey, if you have any more of this, you have to pay your own settlements. The company will no longer pay your settlements. Big change, guys.
God.
So that literally says to you
so funny.
that they expect it's going to happen again. And more importantly, they're not going to stop it.
It's quite like, it took them a while to get there, didn't it?
but they didn't even try and stop it.
Yeah.
So basically they were more concerned about liability of the company than of the women who work for them.
Good Lord. And that's an internal memo, right? So that's for
But it did go to the board.
Okay.
So you can't go that people didn't know about Harvey's bad behavior, within the company.
Because Jodi and Megan's editors, Dean and Rebecca, are constantly going, what have you got? And I think the key call out is that they knew early on that unless all the women jumped together, we're not going to get really any of them possibly on the record.
But even that probably is not enough. Like, it's the paperwork that really helps clinch
really
this story. And that is so sexist and horrible, but it's sort of the truth.
It's kind of the way it works, isn't it? So getting that piece of evidence, it seems to be the real part where Dean, the editor,
clincher.
He's going, we got to publish now.
Yeah.
The journalists are going, hang on. We need to wait longer because it would be a greater story if we get one of the women on the record, and we need to give them time to do that.
But I would imagine that's a common problem with a lot of stories where the journalists go wait and the editor's going publish.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, that's a common tension.
That's got to be all the time. Yeah.
But Dean is aware that those documents, and I hate saying this, in some ways matters more than having more women on the record.
Yeah.
It just does.
And he knows that, actually. And he's going,
it's a sad truth.
And he's going, we're ready. We're going to go. Of course, what they have to do, which I guess is the responsibility of an institution like the New York Times, is that they have to go to Miramax and Harvey Weinstein's representatives, because they want them to respond.
Yes, they need a response. You can't just publish an article without getting a response, at least attempting to get a response first.
Right. And of course, being the great group of manipulators that they are, both lawyers and Weinstein spend a great deal of their time delaying everything, like doing a conference call for 90 minutes where it's just ranting. Which is, I mean, watching the editor Dean talk to Harvey Weinstein is quite entertaining in a fact that they're like, look, Harvey, we got you. Can you just give us a response? Is that all right? And Harvey's like, listen, Dean, you know that these people are liars, pants on fire. And then he's just like, Harvey, it's been 90 minutes. I'm going to hang up now. And so there's this almost a satisfaction in a way to watch the integrity of journalism finally get some traction on this hideous monster. Even more stranger is Harvey undermines the publication of the New York Times' article by going to Variety early. Like he
But remember, Harvey's not trying to play fair.
No, and he knows everyone probably at Variety, and one phone call does it.
You have to remember that he has for decades worked, the rules don't apply to me, and I'm doing everything to save my life and my career.
Yeah.
Why do I have to wait for the New York Times? And legally, he doesn't have to wait for the New York Times either.
No. And in a way, it's kind of a conclusion of the conflict is that Weinstein himself, with his lawyers, go to the New York Times office.
Yes, a surprise.
Right.
They literally say they're on their way.
And in a way, Megan Carey Mulligan's... where
she's been wanting this.
Yeah, like she's almost she gets that opportunity to kind of look at him in the face. And again, Mel's very well filmed because you only ever see the back of Harvey Weinstein's head. So again, it's kind of, we don't want to humanize the monster in a way, because the truth is that this isn't a movie about Harvey Weinstein. This is a movie about
the women,
Megan and Jodi. That's who it's about. So it's cleverly done.
And the victims.
And the victims. This is their movie. So we're not going to show his face because that's not what it's about. And so you see the back of Harvey Weinstein's head the whole time, and you get that really, really wonderful slow zoom onto Carey Mulligan's face. Like she does that performance where she's just looking at Harvey, and it's it's a fascinating piece of acting because it's communicating many different things. A part of it is pity, I think. She's kind of pitying him.
Is she?
Well,
I didn't get that.
I think you can project nearly what you are feeling onto it in a way, because she's just looking at him going, I think you're done in a way.
That's what I got.
I mean, Carey Mulligan does that so well. It's not easy to do that. She's communicating a lot.
He's obsessed with whether Gwyneth is part of the story.
I guess that's because Gwyneth is quite famous. Right?
Well, at one stage, she was known as the first lady of Miramax.
Yes, right.
Because she was in a number of Miramax movies that did quite well.
Yeah. They don't actually have anyone on the record, I think, until Ashley Judd.
Because Rose McGowan refuses to be part of the story.
Yeah.
Ashley Judd agrees. Zelda. And then Laura Madden.
Laura Madden was the other one. And this is where you have to admire the courage of Ashley Judd, genuinely, because Jodi says to Ashley Judd, we don't have anyone else on the record, so if you decide to go and put your name on it, you're going to be the only one that's on the record. And she, even with all of that pressure, she says yes, which is really, really incredible, even against all the odds of all this power that's going on. I do enjoy a scene where you see the work of journalism, Mel, being done. I love a movie that concludes with essentially like 5 people looking at a story and reading it silently as we watch them.
Now, that's based on a real photo that was taken.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it. I'll have to look this up. So you can actually find this online, can you? That's cool. I love it. I like this because, to me, I don't believe the movie should be like incredibly dramatic all the time. I really appreciate a movie that goes, no, the job is actually reading something 50 times.
Yeah, they're journalists. They write for a living.
Yeah.
That's their job.
That's their job. And so I don't care if it doesn't look exciting on cinema. You have to sit there and read it.
There's plenty of drama in this movie. That is not the problem.
No, this is exactly right. So I really appreciate it.
And they look exhausted getting ready to the finish line.
You don't see it, but how many times have they read that? And
oh no, they rewrote it so many times. It's not funny.
Okay, right? Because it's you have to get
and it changed
right.
depending on who's on the record. Then you've got to add in Harvey's response when it finally came.
Yeah, and then you have the editor's checker. I do like that. I imagine that guy with the glasses who's actually he's like the common Nazi. I imagine he's like doing.
Yeah, he's like this double space here.
Yeah, he's like that guy. So that you need that person.
But that's an important role.
Oh yeah, journalistic standards. I really appreciate seeing the work literally at the end. That it takes all of these people. It takes all of this expertise. It takes all of this research and talking and phone calls late at night. How many hours of sleep did they not get? And it all comes down to pressing a button that says publish and going, gee, I hope someone reads this.
It's more than that. I hope it makes a difference.
I hope it makes a difference. Yeah. And I love that it ends. It cuts to black and it's like, that's it. We're not going to do what happens next.
Which I think is good because it means it's a tight movie.
Yeah.
Because we all know what happens next.
I think I remember. So the timeline is October 5th. The New York Times publishes their article. Mm-hmm. October 10th, Ronan Farrow publishes his New Yorker piece.
Right. So Harvey's sacked by the Weinstein Company on October 8th.
Right, in between those two,
Mm-hmm.
right? So October 8th, then he does that. This is 2017, by the way, if I remember right.
Yep.
And then by October 31st, so within the same month, 82 women came out.
Yeah, but he's not arrested until May the next year.
Yeah, the wheels of justice turn awfully slow.
Now, Dean, the editor-in-chief, was the first African-American editor of the New York Times.
Wow, really?
And he had been involved in stories like this, not with Hollywood, but sexual harassment, sexual abuse stuff in previous decades.
Right.
And those stories had fallen apart because they hadn't got them right. So there's a team involved with this story that is very aware of the importance of getting this story right. So it doesn't become unstuck post-publication and people can wriggle their way out of it.
And I'm sure the book you read, She Said, covers this. I know Ronan Farrow's book, To Catch and Kill, he covers quite a long history of other journalists from many decades trying to write the story, the exact same story
Yes.
in the past and failing because of either, unfortunately, not getting people on the record or quite honestly, again, lawyers and people shutting down the story, intimidating people and shutting it down.
But also no documents.
And no documents. Yes.
Documents, I know they're incredibly unsexy, but they kind of really are a big part of this glue.
I think...
They just are.
And this is the thing, Mel, and maybe we go back to the original question, maybe, right? The original question is, I suppose, why does this particular one, and maybe we've already answered it, does the Weinstein one have some sort of consequences? And why do the other ones, and we mentioned Trump, Donald Trump's in the movie, but there's other people too.
I think the Fox one started the trend, which was post-Trump.
Right, yes.
So I think the trend had already started.
Bill O'Reilly was on Jon Stewart's show like a week ago. I mean,
There's no consequences for these men.
I just thought to myself, Jon Stewart,
Should know better.
you should know better. Why on earth are you interviewing that guy? He shouldn't be on TV.
No, of course he shouldn't be.
Anyway, but it's again, you're right to say this. So yeah, some consequences, not many.
So there is for Harvey, but there isn't for any of the other men, and to be fair, women who were on the board, who signed off checks, who are allowing inappropriate cash to be used.
Right. It is the lesson that this is one instance of this, right? This is
One man,
this
one
is
predator.
one guy. I mean, how many more are there? That's the thing. There's many times Rose McGowan in the movie says, listen, this is a systemic thing. This is a systemic thing. And this is one example of that. And I suppose that's what I take from the movie is I kind of go, I mean, it's wonderful to see all of this play out and this hard work being done. But then I go, this is one person.
But you're also taking it at the extreme end. There's also a ton of other behavior that women have to put up with every day in the workplace, which they shouldn't have to either. And that is done by a much larger percentage of men. And it can be subtle things like women have to clean up after a work morning tea, but the men don't. It's not always necessarily a sexualized behavior.
It doesn't have to get to this extremity, right?
No, but
yeah.
There's still plenty of it going on. Or even about the number of unpaid hours that women do in the home compared to men. Housework. The housework deficit.
Well, what's that job, The Second Shift? Do you remember that book? Which was, of course, about the idea that, once dual incomes were a thing, women were expected to do two jobs.
Yeah.
And the men did one job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, that is changing, but we're still not at parity.
There's still a lot of work to be done.
Rotten Tomatoes game?
Let's do it, Mel.
Excellent.
Let's do the Rotten Tomatoes game. Here we go. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do first. We're going to cover a little bit of box office because we should just crunch the numbers briefly. The budget of the movie, She Said, is $32 million.
It's not cheap.
Not cheap, not expensive.
Compared to Wicked Little Letters.
Well, I think that's true, but you've got some big names in it. I thought it was a perfect example of what a mid-budget movie should be.
Sure.
it's all filmed inside the real offices of the New York Times. Which is, I enjoy that too, because it doesn't look like a set to me, which is, of course.
Well, we've got a little sequence in Venice. We've got a little sequence in Wales and Cornwall.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a few things. Okay, so $32 million budget. Worldwide gross was $13.9 million. It had, famously, as reported by the Hollywood Trades, not that anyone cares what they say, you should have seen the headlines, Mel, of the Hollywood Trades. You know, they were like... she said is one of the biggest flops in the history of Hollywood. I mean, this is what the headline of the Trades was saying.
Who reads this?
Like movie
I've
industry.
never read this.
Movie industry people.
Sure.
Hollywood reads it. I thought...
Because they're the height of virtue and merit.
That's right. I mean, morality starts and ends there, doesn't it?
Who would have thought they might criticize a movie which is about them behaving badly?
I know. I mean, how dare you criticize the system we built, that we worked so hard to build? And so She Said comes out, and it does. In fairness, it doesn't make a lot of money, which is very true. But I mean, it's pretty rich coming out with the old. It's one of the biggest flops in history, and it's like, what have you not seen? Ishtar or Heaven's Gate? I mean, they're a bit bigger.
They just should have said, if they didn't want to say anything nice, they should have just said nothing.
Exactly. Shut up. Don't
come out looking like a bunch of morons.
Just take a breath and calm down. Like, they just, honestly, Mel, they couldn't wait to write articles about what a failure this movie was.
But it would have been written by men.
Oh, 100%. God, it's probably bloody Miramax calling them, saying, write an article about what a bloody bomb this is, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, the headlines of the release of She Said are kind of disgusting, to be frank. The movie didn't do financially too well. I was wondering what your thoughts were on why you didn't think it did too well. In 2022, you know, we're kind of still seeing the tail end of the COVID years. Is it a case where at an audience level, people seen the topic and subject matter and thought, it's been a hell of a crappy few years, I don't think I can watch a 2-hour movie about that theme?
So I don't remember being advertised at all in Australia.
Yeah.
The first I remember even really seeing it or knowing of its existence, I reckon when I saw it advertised on Netflix.
I think I'm in the same. I don't think I even seen a poster for it.
I don't know if it was released here.
Deadline, one of the trades, of course, not that I care what they say, they said that viewers were emotionally exhausted from the story. They said, you know, people are kind of done with Weinstein. It's over-reported. So can you say, you know, I don't know if you can over-report on something that disgusting, but apparently it was over-reported. And then they also said journalists as a topic they're just not as interesting as they think they are in movies. And then I thought to myself, what are you talking about? Spotlight
is huge.
It's massive, isn't it? It was a massive movie, wasn't it? Like it got.
But it's not a movie criticizing Hollywood.
Well, yes.
Can you imagine how many companies would have not really wanted to promote it? How, you know, the publicist, like,
I know, it's a bit like, what do you mean?
It just comes across as a bit dodgy.
Nothing is worse than Hollywood protecting itself. And I suppose that's what I found a little bit. When you see the reporting around the failure of the movie, there was almost like this wonderful, like, I can't wait to have all of us publish articles about what a colossal failure this movie is, about how bad our industry is.
Because it's a really good movie.
It's great. It is really good.
I'd be curious to see what Netflix numbers it had.
I would love to know. That's a good point. How much, because they don't release that stuff.
No, ever.
Yeah, which is a shame, but I would love to know. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, especially
if it does much better than...
Yeah, and for the people that have seen the movie, it makes a real impact, you know? Okay, well, we're going to be doing, Mel, the Rotten Tomatoes game for journalism movies, i.e. movies that have journalism stuff going on in them, investigatory things. So we're going to do these. So I've got all of my list. The list is a random order, so you're not going to know whether it's going up or down in terms of score, and I'm going to get you to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score for how those sick Hollywood critics, how they rated the movie. So we're going to start off, Mel, and a few of these you will definitely have seen. I'm going to start off with a classic one, All the President's Men.
You know I never finished this movie.
You didn't actually, did you?
I got bored.
Yeah, I think it... How far in did you get, can I ask?
I don't know, maybe an hour.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty early. So yeah, 1976. I suppose you can only rate the first hour then, can you? Right? So,
I mean, I know it's rated very highly, but it's about two white men doing an investigation.
yes. Okay. Well, yeah.
And in that sense, unlike She Said, it's very two-dimensional. You have no real sense of their lives outside of work.
I mean, I like this movie quite a lot.
I know you'd like it.
But I'm trying to be open to your criticism.
So I'm going to go like 90%.
I'll give you that. You're within the 10% threshold. 94%. So it's doing...
Because back then it's also based on reviews by a bunch of other white men who love this stuff.
It's a good movie. Listen, it's good. If you can get, as Mel said, if you can get past the first hour, it does pick up an awful lot. So you turned it off, it just gets 5-star movie after that scene.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to go to She Said. The movie we're covering today. It came out in November 2022. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is? Have you looked it up?
78?
I'll give you that. Yeah, it's 88%.
That's a very good score.
It did pretty good. And I'll tell you this, the audience score, not that I care about it, it's 91%. So generally speaking, it's not like a majority of the audience, in theory, rejected it. They actually, for those who've seen it, they really liked it.
Yeah.
We're going up the list actually a little bit more. Good Night and Good Luck.
Which one's this?
This is a black and white George Clooney movie about Edward R. Murrow from 2005.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. It's you might like it only for the reason that it's really short.
I'm going to go 65.
93%.
Yeah, right.
Journalism movies do good. I'm looking at my list and I'm not...
Critics like movies about themselves, basically.
Well, critics love writing, and so then they see movies about writers and they go, this is great. I love this.
Because it makes their lives look so much more exciting than what it is.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. I am going to skip a few because I want to see the ones you've seen now. So we'll go to the next one. Zodiac. So David Fincher's Zodiac. It's about the San Francisco Chronicle reporters that covered the serial killer in the 1970s. Have you seen the movie first of all? Okay. It's probably the greatest movie ever made. So
okay, so therefore 98.
Yeah, I'll give you that. 90%.
How is it the greatest movie ever made and it's 90%?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of it. There's a few idiots that got through the gatekeeper,
I guarantee I wouldn't give it that score.
I would be curious of what you would say about it, but it's probably my favorite movie.
Okay,
I'd probably say it. Maybe it is my favorite. I seen it obsessively over and over again when it came out. We'll move up a little bit further. Spotlight.
Seen it.
I think it's a very good movie.
It's a very good movie.
Won the Oscar for Best Picture back in the day. As you said, because it wasn't covering Hollywood thoroughly embraced this movie. So where do you think... Oh, actually, here's an interesting thing. The budget of Spotlight, what do you think the budget was?
20 million?
Perfect. 20 million. On the dot.
It was a long time ago.
Mel was counting it as she watched it. So what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is?
95.
97. Let me tell you, high-rated movies are what these are. These are all...
But Spotlight is brilliant.
It's very good. It's a good movie. I seen it on the rooftop of like a cinema. They had like an open-air cinema thing. And it was like Christmas time. And I remember we were just like sitting here watching this movie on the rooftop.
A bit dark.
Yeah, it was like Christmas time. And we were like, oh, presents. And, got our coats on. And then they're like, child sexual abuse. We were just like, wow, this is deep. It was quite a dark experience. Very good movie. All right, moving up the list. Blood Diamond.
Yes, love this movie.
It's a good movie, right?
Leo?
Yeah, I like it too. Djimon Hounsou, superb. Edward Zwick directing, Leonardo DiCaprio doing his South African accent.
Who's the journalist? No, Rhodesia. He's from Zimbabwe.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Because I know the movie's mostly set, I think, in South Africa, if I remember right. Yeah.
No, but he's not playing a South African.
Oh, apologies. It has been a while since I've seen it. He's also with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Who's the journalist?
Jennifer Connelly.
Yes.
And she is the journalist, which is the Journalism Connection. $100 million budget, was a big movie. Famously, a bit of a flop. I want to say it was...
Really?
Yeah, big underperformer that year. I don't have the gross here, but it was
It's not a date night movie.
It was a massive underperformer. Part of the conspiracy was that the diamond industry were like publicizing against the movie being marketed well, so there was like this conspiratorial thing where like these powerful jewelry industries didn't want the movie to...
It's not a date night movie, and it's not a movie that a bunch of teenagers are going to go to. It doesn't have mass audience appeal. And as most women have a diamond at least on one of their fingers, if not multiple fingers, there'd be a few who would be a bit uncomfortable with the idea that maybe that diamond on their finger or in their earring has come from a conflict zone.
I don't know if I should give the movie credit for this, but I feel like after that date, I seen advertisements for conflict-free diamonds.
Me too. I think it changed.
I think it did. I want to say this movie was one of the big catalysts for that.
No, you didn't ask me what the score.
Let me do this right now.
Okay.
What's the score, do you think, for this one?
96.
63%.
What?
I know. It's mad, isn't it? Critics are
crazy.
crazy.
And yet they gave the black and white George Clooney movie, which no one's heard of or seen.
Well, I've seen it, but I know where you're going. But like the critical consensus for Blood Diamond, which I thought you would have a bit of fun picking apart. Blood Diamond overcomes poor storytelling with its biting commentary and fine performances. So it's almost like it's a terrible story, but it overcomes it.
Are you kidding?
Oh, it's Jaimon Hounsou in the movie. So good.
Phenomenal.
He is terrific. I mean, this is a very underrated movie, I think. Although you'll be curious to know the audience score for the movie is 90%.
Yeah.
So it's quite...
I think audience scores are better than some of the critic scores.
Maybe, yeah. Some of them are a bit...
Not always, but
yeah. It's fascinating, though, because like there is there's a 30% gap between audience and critics for this movie.
I know a lot of critics hated Leo's accent.
I quite like it, actually. I mean, but I say this to someone...
I've been told by linguists for a Zimbabwean accent for a white Zimbabwean man, it was incredibly accurate. The problem is a lot of idiots think he's meant to be South African. And he's not. They say it in the movie.
I apologize. I take this moment to take back. It's been a while since I've seen the movie.
I don't mean you, but I think that's no, for a lot of people. But that's the problem. You're like, he's not playing a South African people.
But I really embraced the accent. I thought it was really good.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. No. It's a really good movie, I have to say. Okay, so let's move up actually a little bit further. We're going to do The Post, which was Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. Yeah. And I believe it's about Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, if I remember right. So,
it's okay. It's fine.
I was a bit disappointed with it. I thought it was...
I made it to the end.
Well, that's a start, isn't it? I mean, if you've got a movie and Mel gets through to the end of it, you're doing superb. You might have a hit, I'm
going to say 75%.
I can't give you that. 88%. It's quite highly rated. I think that's overrated.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. What's the audience score for that?
That's a great question. Let me look it up for you right now. Audience score is 74%.
Yeah, that feels more right.
So it's about, what are we talking about? We're talking 15% difference nearly. This one is a bit of a random one, although I think there is a journalist in it. Deep Impact.
Remind me which disaster one is Deep Impact?
Taya Leone's in it, and
she's the news anchor.
That's right, and that's why
that's your journalist.
That's
link.
my journalist link.
Fredo's in it.
Yes, true. I don't think he'll appreciate you knowing that.
Morgan Freeman, the president.
Morgan Freeman's the president.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
It's about an asteroid that's going to hit Earth. Yeah. It does hit Earth.
Well,
and who survives?
It's kind of brilliant in a way.
Or Mrs. Earth just.
I mean, look, it's a terrible movie, but it's brilliant because they break the asteroid in two, and they have an asteroid that's small enough to not kill everyone, but big enough to give you some Hollywood spectacle.
Drama, yeah.
Yeah. And I must say, that was pretty fun to watch Hollywood do like an asteroid smash into the Earth.
Armageddon is infinitely better.
It is. And I must say, Michael Bay can't claim that title often, but it is infinitely
It is better.
It is better now. I remember it was... Do you remember? I don't know if you remember because the spaceship at the end, right? Do you know
Armageddon?
In Deep Impact, sorry.
There's a spaceship in Deep Impact?
There is, yeah.
I've forgotten that.
Robert Duvall's on it, right? The great Robert Duvall. God, he must have needed to put the grandkids through college.
Yeah.
But so he's driving a spaceship or something into the... And they're supposed to blow up the asteroid, right? And so the way they do it at the end...
Which Armageddon says you can't do unless you drill.
That's right. They do the dumbest thing ever, and they just drive the ship into the front of the asteroid, like they're hitting a bus, It's so stupid. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, what age was I? I was Like, I
reckon I was in primary school.
I was a very impressionable kid. You could have told me anything.
Maybe year 7.
You could have told me that, the moon was made of cheese, and I might have went, maybe it is.
Yeah.
And I seen them drive that ship into an asteroid, and the asteroid, like, being saved. And I remember thinking as a kid, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That is not how that works.
My basic science understanding tells me that's garbage. My practice with Lego tells me that doesn't work.
Give me strength. It was terrible, terrible movie. But, I mean, balls to do it. I mean,
there was a spate of disaster movies at that time.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, we had Armageddon and Deep Impact the same year.
And Day After Tomorrow was maybe a year or two later.
That was like 2001, I think. Yeah, maybe 2000. Yeah, you might be right.
Right, so they were all kind of...
And also, I mean, let's face it, the best double bill ever was Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan.
But we love...
Which is basically, I love Dante's Peak. It's so funny.
Dante's Peak too.
Dante's Peak is essentially an hour and 10 minutes of Pierce Brosnan going, you guys
need to evacuate.
And everybody going, bullshit. And then 30 minutes of him going, I told you we should have evacuated.
No, then he's got to save his love interest and the kids.
That is true, yeah. That is a funny movie. And Volcano is the other one. Do you remember Volcano?
No, I haven't seen Volcano.
No, that was Tommy Lee Jones in LA and a volcano.
Oh, yes, I do.
You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. That was not a good movie.
The chick is like, yeah, it is a lovely warm day, but it takes a huge thing to raise the pool of water this size by 10 degrees in one day.
That was during the era of Hollywood disaster movies where they always started with a really nice, friendly radio morning broadcast going, hey, Hollywood, what a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's 27 degrees.
27 degrees. And you're going, oh, that's something bad's going to happen. They're too happy.
Because he's in charge of the disaster response center.
That's right. Yeah. And again, to see a movie, because it's basically an hour of him going, look, some bad stuff's going to happen. We're going, get at it, you're talking crap.
And they basically dig a ginormous trench to send the lava into the ocean.
Yes, right.
I don't know how they dig that trench that quickly.
It's so quick too. It's not a very tense scene, I must say, because it's only so exciting you can make digging. You know what I mean? It's not a cutting edge. We're not talking
but there's
minute to minute.
No real volcano in it. Because it's an underground volcano. That's part of the problem.
That's right. And a building falls on him, I remember. But boy, I tell you, that's a weird movie. That is a strange one.
So there was a few disaster movies.
So Deep Impact, right? Let's go back to 1998. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is for this one?
35.
Oh, you're doing very well. 45. That's 10%. I'll give you that. Just on the threshold.
Yep.
Very, very good. All right, we're getting into we'll do two more. Okay. Journalism movie. Frost Nixon.
I haven't seen it.
2008. Michael Sheen, Frank Langella. This is one of these stupid movies where like they go, you gotta nail Nixon, right? It's been too long. You gotta interview. This is the one chance we have for Nixon to go on the air and tell him that he was an idiot. And then we're like, we know he's an idiot. You don't need to...
The world knows he's an idiot.
And it's one of these, it's so dramatic. They're like, this is our one shot to nail him. And you're like, the guy...
has been nailed.
He's nailed. He was nailed a while ago, right? Yeah, he's free. What are you going to do about it? Anyway, it's stupid.
So it's below 50. I'm going to go 39.
93%. It was a real, like, Oscar beaty kind
What's
of
the
thing.
audience score?
Oh, let me check this, actually. Audience score is quite high. It's 88%.
Wow.
So people are into it, It's very stagey. I think it's based on a play. So, yeah, I mean, Ron Howard, God, give me straight. I mean, the guy was begging for Oscars back then. My word. Last but not least, and this is almost a joke one because I'm not sure if you've seen this one. Citizen Kane, which of course is about Charles Foster Kane, who is a newspaper tycoon that runs a newspaper and is famously, of course, one of the considered to be maybe the greatest movie of all time.
I haven't seen it. So then it's got to be 99.
Dead on the money.
Because Singing in the Rain is 100.
98%. It's not the greatest movie ever made, but it's pretty groundbreaking for its era, of course. And that is the Rotten Tomatoes game for journalism movies.
Good list.
Now, Mel, I'm going to take a risk here and introduce a new segment, if that's okay.
Go for it.
I've got a brand new segment. It's very short. It's called, hold your breath, how long until Gladiator 2 is released?
My name is Gladiator.
Gladiator 2 is coming out.
September.
And it's clear. Well, it's actually November, actually.
Oh, which is good because I'm going to be overseas in September.
Mel just changed the date. Newsflash. The clock has changed. So, obviously, it's going to be, I have no doubt, the best movie ever made. Citizen Kane be damned, right? It's going to be terrific. We've seen the trailer. Haven't we seen the trailer?
Trailer's horrible.
Trailer's awful.
Are we going to see it? Yes.
Kanye West has a way of ruining most things, and now he's ruined Gladiator.
Why would Denzel Washington sign up to this movie?
Well, we'll find out. So listen, let's just get an update. We've started the clock. The release date, folks, 114 days, 8 hours, 8 minutes, and 50 seconds until Gladiator 2 releases.
At the time of recording.
At the time of recording. Which makes this a very redundant segment, and that is how long until Gladiator 2 is released.
My name is Gladiator.
What are we doing next episode?
Ooh, well, we're continuing a theme, aren't we?
We are. It's a two-parter.
This is a bit of a two-parter. So we're going back, there's a world of journalism we're going into, and we're going to be doing the true story, which is available on Netflix right now.
And it's been nominated for an Emmy.
Is it?
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, that's interesting. So the movie is Scoop.
Yes, about Prince Andrew.
It's about the Emily Maitlis Prince Andrew interview, which went so well, I think, that interview. Prince Andrew came across as a very, very nice guy.
It's a really good movie. Do watch it.
I think it's very worth it. We're going to have some good criticism of it. So it's on Netflix. So by the way, folks, if you haven't seen it yet, there's plenty of time until the next episode comes out. Go on Netflix, go check it out, wherever you get your movies. Scoop.
And it will make you laugh in parts.
I think it's
a lighter movie.
It is. It's kind of light, isn't it? Some of it's dark.
No, some of it is dark, but it is at times a little bit lighter.
Totally. I'm totally looking forward to
Me too.
to learning more.
Excellent. Sounds good.